I'm finally getting a chance to talk about Glass, the so far highest grossing movie of 2019. This has been a big smash hit at the box office. It's a huge movie for M. Night Shyamalan's career, and it finally ends the so-called Unbreakable trilogy. This movie has been anticipated in two different forms. There's been people who loved the Unbreakable movie who have been waiting many years to see a sequel to that. There's also the people who saw Split and loved it and were waiting for a sequel to that. So we're pretty much appeasing two crowds with this Glass film, which brings the franchises together. Having really liked Split, considering it to be almost my second favorite Shyamalan film, and loving Unbreakable, to me his best film ever, I was really excited for the prospect of bringing them together and doing a full-blown conclusion. And with that, we get an ending. That's the nice thing. There's no sequel baiting going on. It's not like there's something that could possibly lead into a sequel. They end it on a note that maybe could open up some ideas later on, but really this is the final movie. And I really appreciate it for that in this age of making everything a universe. And I think the idea of making one movie a superhero origin and then making another movie a villain origin and bringing them together has never really been done like the way this series chose to do it. And I was really hoping to like it a lot, but the problem is I just don't. This movie did not work for me. M. Night Shyamalan really started digging into the characters that we already knew, digging into things that we already knew about them. And we didn't need to be reintroduced many times to certain parts of their history. For instance, a lot of the movie is just James McAvoy going through all his personalities, which is fine. You're going to have to do that because it is a sequel to Split. People like that about Split. But this time around, it feels a little forced. I don't know what it is. He's got the same energy. It's shot really well. They have this new system where they're using lights to change his personalities, and I didn't mind that was introduced because it just worked for me. You needed to find some kind of flaw in this character, or at least you needed to find a weakness in this character in order to show off the personalities quicker. However, I didn't really understand why we were going through his entire mythology again. I didn't really understand why we needed to learn about why he does things the way he does, because we got that in Split. What's the point of reintroducing it here? We already know all that. And it's weird because they do reintroduce stuff from Unbreakable as well, and a lot of that I feel might be a little too much. They have some flashbacks here and there where, yeah, it's cool to see flashbacks, which are technically deleted scenes from Unbreakable, but honestly, what's the point? Because we already know what these characters are like. And to me, yeah, you needed to reintroduce those Unbreakable characters because Split was a more recent movie. The people who are seeing Glass are probably seeing it more as a Split sequel than an Unbreakable sequel. So you're probably going to have to show more of the Unbreakable stuff to catch those up who hadn't seen it. But the movie still focused way more on the Split characters and reintroducing them, which I didn't understand. Sarah Paulson usually knocks it out of the park for me, but here it just didn't seem like she was bringing her best material. And that's not to say that any of the actors really are. I mean, James McAvoy is doing great, and Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson, I like seeing them again, but they don't get a lot of screen time, weirdly enough. You'd think for being a sequel to Unbreakable, we'd be getting, the story of David Dunn and his final lash out with Mr. Glass, but we don't really get that. Samuel L. Jackson, honestly, is silent throughout most of the movie. He doesn't really say much, even though we already know what we're waiting for. We know he's going to strike anytime soon, so why they hold off on it for so long, I don't know. And Sarah Paulson, I don't know, there's just, maybe it was the way that M. Night Shyamalan directed them, or maybe the script was written, but it just seems like she's very robotic in this movie, which I guess for the ending, the twist overall, maybe that makes it work, but I'm not quite sure if I buy that reasoning. And for being a movie that was $20 million, it really did feel cheap at times, which is too bad, seeing that Split was made for under $10 million and it looked amazing. But what that movie was trying to accomplish, being a small-scale horror film, it worked. Here, when you're doing a bigger superhero movie now. It's kind of weird that we're not getting those bigger budget moments, with more background characters or with some better sets or at least showing more of the characters. Honestly, most of the time we just have them sitting in cells just talking about who they are and why they are the way they are and what they should be doing next, because I read that in the comic book. I didn't really get a lot of that. A lot of the connections that they're trying to create here don't really make sense to me either. There's David Dunn's son, Joseph, keeps showing up at places that Casey shows up. They both went to the same high school. What does this amount to? Not really much. Not to say that the movie is full of stuff like that. I mean, it's not. For the most part, I guess the movie is focused, but really, yeah, it's just a weird character dynamic to be adding there that doesn't really amount to anything. And if you want to talk about weird connections and things just being thrown at the screen without a lot of time to explain them, well, just wait for one of the twists to show up. The movie has several, and there's a reveal about Mr. Glass and his past, and that was a reveal that I thought worked really well. Maybe a little bit cliche, but it worked for me. There was the twist at the very end of the movie, revealing what Mr. Glass was actually doing with the computer and what he was doing when he was hacking it. I thought that twist kind of saved a lot of the ending's problems. But there's another twist involving Sarah Paulson that I honestly, when I walked out, was thinking, this has got to be one of the stupidest things M. Night Shyamalan's done. Not in the fact that it's a bad idea. It's not. The premise of this twist is amazing. I think it goes right back to what Unbreakable was all about, bringing the superhero world into the real world and what it would actually be like. I think this twist involving Sarah Paulson is very believable. I could see this happening in real life. They say things that relate to real world conflicts. But the problem is, it shows up last minute without any explanation, and for a movie that really wasn't focused on her character or any of this stuff for the most part, I just didn't get why we didn't get more of it, or at least some build up towards it, or even have it revealed early on. I don't know, I feel like they could have done something differently, because for the most part, the biggest problem with this movie, honestly, is that it's boring. It's just a really boring movie with introductions of characters we've already seen, ending in a climactic, very anticlimactic fight, feeling very low budget when it is low budget, but it felt low budget, and I don't feel like that's good for what should be an epic finale to a really interesting trilogy. I'll give it credit that it has way bigger ideas than a lot of superhero movies out there, but this movie just didn't do it for me. I still have to give the movie 2 out of 5 stars. So what do you think of Glass? Do you think it's worthy of all the amount of cash it's getting? I guess it didn't really get good reviews. Or do you think M. Night Shyamalan's going back to his old ways of Last Airbender and After Earth and The Happening? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.